guys are planning to watch Ratched, do yourself a favor and don't bother rewatching One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest like I did. It doesn't help. Hey up guys, so today on the channel I want to talk about the new TV series Ratched, which is the latest in a long line of Ryan Murphy related content to land on Netflix this year. Ratched the miniseries was created and developed by Ryan Murphy and Evan Romansky and takes one of cinema's greatest love-to-hate villains of all time, Nurse Ratchet, from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The character was played by Lousie Fletcher. She was so great in that role, she actually won an Academy Award for it. And yeah, the character Nurse Ratchet comes from the book of the same name by Ken Kesey. So they've taken the character of Nurse Ratchet from the movie and given her her own mini-series which attempts to give her some backstory as to how she became the cruel nurse that we know from the movie. And I just found myself feeling like this was a completely unnecessary and oddly detached miniseries, which honestly couldn't feel further removed from its source material of what it's based off of if it tried. All the way through this miniseries, I kept asking myself, have these people even seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Because the show and the titular character Nurse Ratchet, played in this miniseries by Ryan Murphy's muse Sarah Paulson, don't feel like they come from the same universe as One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I mean, all credit for trying to do something a bit different, but when you're crafting a TV series around a character from one of the best movies of all time, then you kind of expect there to be some sort of correlation between the character that we know from the movie and this character which you're giving a prequel miniseries to, okay? There's got to be some sort of through line, some sort of connection. But I didn't really feel that watching this miniseries. It feels so weirdly detached from, what it's based off of. With all these TV series that Ryan Murphy is producing, he was too preoccupied with the fact of what he could make instead of asking if he should make it. Was anybody actually asking for a Nurse Ratched miniseries? Can't we just leave well enough alone? The series itself is set in 1947, a good 15 years or so before the events of Cuckoo's Nest, and attempts to give us some sort of insight as to who Ratched was before Cuckoo's Nest. In the first episode, we're introduced to Mildred Ratched, played in this miniseries by Sarah Paulson. We learn that she is a master manipulator because she manages to finagle herself a nurse job position at the Lucia State Hospital somewhere in Northern California. Her motives for doing this are a little bit spoilery, so I won't say why, but it's because she has a connection to someone there. And over the course of the 8 episodes, we watch what can only be described as a multiverse of different Ratcheds come and go, because it doesn't really feel like they have a firm grasp on what Sarah Paulson's interpretation of Ratched is meant to be. The characterization of Paulson's Ratched is so muddled. Her ethos seems to change from scene to scene depending on what the situation needs her to be. She's constantly in flux. Sometimes she seems to be a genuinely caring nurse and just wants to help people, and then in few scenes later, she's coercing people into killing themselves and then incinerating their bodies. Then she's painted out to be a sympathetic victim of an abusive childhood and also might be a repressed lesbian. She'll call some of the medical treatments barbaric, like the hydrotherapy bathtub, but then she has no trepidations about giving someone a lobotomy herself. There's actually a supporting character that has multiple personality disorder, and I swear to God, sometimes it felt like Ratched herself also had this condition because there were so many different versions of Ratched over the space of these episodes. Her actions in one scene completely clash and contradict with her actions in another scene. It just doesn't make any sense. All credit to Sarah Paulson, she does deliver a great performance as Ratched. It's just the way that Ratched is written is messy. It doesn't feel like the character has been fully realized. And then there's the supporting characters, which don't amount to much. I would say my favorite was probably Judy Davis as the head nurse, Betsy Bucket. Can't talk. She was great. Cynthia Nixon managed to find some layers and nuance with her political aid character Gwendolyn Briggs. Finn Wittrock is a bit one note as the serial killer Edmund Tolson, and the same has to be said about Alice Englert, who plays Nurse Dolly. Her character arc is a bit predictable, and the way it ends is just so anticlimactic. Corey Stoll and Sharon Stone's characters are quite frankly inconsequential to the whole series, and John Briones, who plays Dr. Richard Hanover, does have some good material to work with. However, I was still a bit underwhelmed by his arc. And then there's Sophie Okonedo, who plays Charlotte Wells, the character with multiple personality disorder, but she's not really a character as much as she is a plot device. She really deserved better. As for positives, well, like all Ryan Murphy's shows, the production design and the costumes are exquisite, but like Hollywood, it just feels like it's a pretty exterior masking the fact that there isn't really that much story. There's no substance here, but that doesn't matter just as long as you're pretty. Ratched as a series just feels very unsure of itself in terms of style and tone. It doesn't really borrow much from Milos Forman's Cuckoo's Nest. Instead, it feels more Hitchcockian in the way that it's shot, but with less intrigue. There's more flair, but it's just not as intriguing. Like, there's scenes where something dramatic will happen, then all of a sudden the lighting just all changes to red or green or blue. And to me, this just felt very theatrical, but kind of tacky as well. It is heavily inspired by other horror movies, like, for example, Hitchcock's Psycho, with the fact that Ratched lives at this motel. It's very reminiscent of the Bates Motel from Psycho. The opening scene with Mildred driving to the Lucia State Hospital is a bit like The Shining in the way that you watch the car drive up the winding roads. And also, the music to this series is just lifted from other horror films like Elmer Bernstein's brassy and nervy score from Cape Fear. And I knew I recognized the theme music somewhere. I believe it's called Danse Macabre, and I know it from the episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer Hush, where Giles is using flashcards to explain what's happening to Sunnydale. It's very spooky, and it feels a little bit like an opera. In the end though, guys, I just found Ratched to be a very meh series. Like, it has its moments where it's entertaining, but just overall, it had me asking, why did they even bother so often? I mean, it is possible to make a prequel TV series to a beloved film. Like, just look at Bates Motel. Like, that's a great prequel series. But it works because it's in tone and style of Alfred Hitchcock's movie. Not too detached from it, but it still manages to be its own thing by being set in the modern day, whereas Ratched, it's so completely far removed from Cuckoo's Nest, and I'm just like, there's nothing here that I love from Cuckoo's Nest, and also, it doesn't do anything that exciting or original with it. It's just something like, it's like Ryan Murphy just splashed an American Horror Story filter over the character of Nurse Ratchet, and that's it. It's just a lot of style and flair, the occasional bit of shock gore, but yeah, there's nothing really that improves upon the amazingness of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Lousie Fletcher's Nurse Ratchet. And it's a TV series which just doesn't have anything to say, and it's not like there wasn't any potential here. Like, mental health is all the rage right now in society, and, you know, you can look at history to look at where we are now, and the show doesn't really, like, reflect on any of it. It's just really superficial. This film was cobbled together solely on the fondness and nostalgia of a beloved character from an old movie, and thought, yeah, I want to know their backstory, but is the backstory worth telling? To be honest, if this is intended to be Nurse Ratchet's backstory, then it doesn't do anything to complement the Nurse Ratchet that we know from Cuckoo's Nest. If anything, it just taints it. Barely any attributes of the Ratchet that we knew from Cuckoo's Nest aligns with this mini-series. It just feels so all over the place and messy. I was actually shocked to hear that apparently season 2 has already been commissioned for this series. So let's ask them 3 questions. Firstly, would I watch this again? Nah. Question number 2, would I recommend it for you guys? I know Ryan Murphy has his fans, and if you just want something that looks pretty but tells a pretty pointless story, then sure. Fans of the Cuckoo's Nest, I would say to avoid this one, and anybody else, I'd say no. And third question, score out of 10. I'm going to give Series 1 of Ratched a score of 4 out of 10. But as always, it's just one bloke's opinion, guys. I want to hear from you. Will you be watching Ratched? What did you guys think of it if you have seen it? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? What score would you give Season 1 out of 10? Whatever you guys think, be sure to let your voices be heard in the comment section down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button. If you want more movie and TV content just like this, don't forget to click subscribe, and if you want to follow me on any social media, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, all in that video description down below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. For more things related to movies, TV, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Carefield, and I'll see you next time.